Well, how's it going, everybody? JT here on behalf of the Ethfinance Daily General Discussion on our Ethereum. We are very delighted today to have Mr. Justin Drake on the call. How's it going today, sir?
Yeah, doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you know, it's been a long time coming. We're on our 97th episode, and we've been getting some incredible guests coming in over the last several episodes, and it's just really an honor to have somebody from the Ethereum Foundation stop in and say hello and talk all things Beam Chain. Normally we have a big introduction. We're going to start changing the format of the show moving forward, give our guests all of the energy right up front. And thank you to all the Mavericks for joining today. A lot of the people that were anticipating this special event, they've already got some questions together. And I wanted to make sure that we get a bunch of these out there. In fact, I'm just going to share it on a screen here so we can kind of look at what other people have been asking, because after all, this is a community-driven show. This is not my podcast. This is EVMavericks and the Our Ethereum subreddit podcast. And so this works like a very functional AMA situation with the video stream. We've also got some great people down in the Discord. If you want to stop by the Discord and come say hi, you're more than welcome to do that. We got plenty of room in the audience for anyone else that wants to join in. So I'm starting the clock. It's 9:30 my time. It's 3:30 Justin's time. We're cutting into his beer hour. All right. And so we're going to make sure that he said he's got a good 45 minutes. And so without further ado, let's take a look at some of these questions. We're going to start off with a little bit from Hani Abu. I like this question here. Everyone is talking about accelerating. What changes are being made or need to be made to do so? So Justin, first of all, this idea of accelerating, what is that?
Yeah, so I think there's a change of context for Ethereum generally, right? We have competition from other L1s, and we have a change of regulatory context as well. And I think there's just a thirst and a desire for people to start building real applications and go above and beyond just building lots of infrastructure. And so within the Ethereum Foundation, there's a lot of changes that are happening, and some of them will be made public over the following weeks and months. Some of them have already been made public, but overall, I think there's a massive change to the culture. I certainly feel the accelerationism, the desire to be more aggressive, to be more outspoken. We've seen, for example, the EF Twitter account be more vocal. It's possible that the Ethereum Foundation has signaled that maybe it's going to stake some of its ETH, maybe put some of its ETH in DeFi. Who knows what's going to happen? But overall, super optimistic for 2025. And I think the L2s, are also trying to work together more to create more network effects, and we've seen that recently with a desire to converge around shared sequencing, possibly base sequencing, and also to become closer to Ethereum L1 through innovations like native rollups.
And then the other part of the accelerating, I was listening to your podcast, I believe it was maybe The Defiant with Camila Rousseau, and there was the Beam chain itself, and it's like a consensus layer upgrade, so to speak. And so
yes,
part of the other word that I heard in that with accelerating is something to do with the ping times, and has the messaging going across the chain. What is it? Pre-confirmations. When I was hearing accelerating, I was in that context, along with everything going on at the foundation. Do you want to speak to that, or is there another question you would like to pivot towards?
No, absolutely. More than happy to speak about pre-confirmations, because the traditional paradigm that we've had for UX is the notion of a slot duration or the block time. And that can go as low as a couple seconds in the case of optimism, or even 250 milliseconds in the case of Arbitrum. But what pre-confirmations do is that they bring you to the theoretical optimum from a UX standpoint, which is ping latency. So as a user, what I'm going to do is talk to the sequencer, which is the entity that's going to build the next block, and get a promise from them that they will include my transaction and that they will execute in a certain way in the next block that they control. And so now we have what I call slot abstraction. It doesn't matter what the slot duration is, because it's abstracted away from a UX standpoint. All you see is this real-time UX. Now, the reason why I went down the pre-confirmation route is because for base sequencing, the number one downside is the 12-second slot times, which is not competitive with the 2 seconds or the 250 milliseconds. But with pre-confirmations, base sequencing, in my opinion, is really, really attractive. And from a UX standpoint, is going to be significantly faster, even than a Solana, which is touted to be very fast today.
So, when we look at the development of the Beam chain itself, is this going to include? This is a question from Harog. Does it include all current and future improvements of the Beacon chain? And if yes, will the new Beam chain teams, will those teams be involved in the current core dev calls, or will those be done separately? So let's tackle the first part of that question. Does the Beam chain development include all the current and future improvements of the Beacon chain?
The answer is no. So there's going to be a bunch of improvements to the Beacon chain that will happen in the short term incrementally. And some of them might not be the end game. It might be like a partial kind of good enough kind of solution that we need in the short term. One example might be, Fossil, right? We have this design of inclusion lists. It's an amazing design where we have 16 different inclusion proposers who can force include transactions on chain for the next slot. And by putting it on the Beacon chain, we're going to learn a lot from real world data. We're going to see how the operators behave and the builders behave relative to censorship. And we're also going to have a lot of lessons learned from a development standpoint. And then we can take all of this learning and incorporate, hopefully, what is a design kind of close to perfect in the Beam chain. Like, part of the idea of the Beam chain is really to have something which is good enough for the next centuries, maybe 1,000 years, the next millennia. And in order to do that, we're going to have to incorporate all of the learnings from the Beacon chain.
I want to go back in time. When did you, and is it just you, or was there a team of researchers along with yourself that came up with the idea of developing a Beam chain?
I think it was mostly just me, and to be quite frank, it was quite a contrarian idea within at least Ethereum Foundation research. I had to put it in the freezer and kind of forget about it for many months and kind of revisit it on a regular basis. And every time I revisited it, I kind of took in some of the criticism. I tried to refine my pitch. It's, I guess, only through this conviction that I had that it was going to be necessary that ultimately I had the persistence to keep trying to convince people. And I think right now, at this point in time, it's kind of taken for granted that, yes, we're going to do a big fork that's going to clean up all of the technical debt and bring us to where we need to be for Ethereum to stay largely untouched, or at least be in like minimal maintenance mode for the next few centuries.
So you just touched on it. You're doing this as it's a way to help clean up code bases, kind of like starting from scratch in parallel, right? Is that a good metaphor? It's like there's going to be a kind of these two interstate highways for a second while all this stuff kind of starts over from scratch on this Beam chain. And then at some point it becomes Ethereum. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because right now we have this incremental approach where if you want to change a small subset of the design, add a little widget here and there, that's totally possible, and that adds a lot of value. But the research has advanced so much since the Beacon chain was launched, and even since the Beacon chain specs were frozen about 5 years ago, that the optimal design that we have in mind right now is fairly different, very, very different to what we have in production. And so if we were to take an incremental approach, it would take decades, because it would be spread over maybe 20 forks. We do 1 fork a year, so that's easily 20 years. So it's much simpler, it's much more pragmatic to take a clean slate approach, because we're bundling so many big changes at the same time. And some of the big changes include making the chain snark friendly. And here it's not about adding a widget, it's about removing all the parts that are not snark friendly. And there's a handful of them. So it's very complicated. And the same thing with post-quantum security. If you want full post-quantum security, you need to remove parts that are not post-quantum secure and replace them with post-quantum secure equivalents. It's not just a matter of adding one bell and whistle as an extra widget.
Yeah.
And part of the optimization is from batching the various upgrades together, if anything, from a social standpoint, because there's a lot of overhead to organizing even a single fork. You have to do dev nets, test nets, you have to write the APs, you have to go to all core devs and do a lot of lobbying. My hope is that we can focus 95% of the effort on technology, and only at the very, very end do we do one fork, which is very heavy on the social side of things.
So on that,
yeah, go ahead, Logri. I hear you.
On that topic, one of the criticisms that I heard at DevCon right after you gave that speech was, well, we just had this. The merge was a huge technical achievement, and it was like changing out the engine of a jet, plane while it was in the air without crashing it. And now we want to do it again, right? And it was a very stressful thing. And even at the moment of the merge, we weren't entirely sure it was going to work, right? We had every reason to try it, but I was there at the launch party, and the devs that were on the line were definitely not 100% sure it was going to work. Yeah, they were watching the console with bated breath. It was like a NASA launch, right? Where there's this. We put it in production, and there's an 8-minute delay, and then we know if something crashed into the moon or into Mars, right? I wonder. Okay, you're saying it's going to go much faster because there's going to be less social overhead. We're going to put in, it's going to be one change instead of 24. But is there more technical risk in executing a very big change like this? And if it goes wrong, can we do it in a way that there's more disaster recovery potential? And could we do something like a merge 2 with the Beam chain, where it launches separately from mainnet and is merged once stable? Or do we just want to cut in from zero like with normal hard forks?
Yeah, great question. So I think part of the reason why it was such a hard sell is because initially I was framing it as a merge 2.0, but now I lean much more on the side of just doing a normal fork. And part of the reason why I think a normal fork is much easier to do than it was previously is because of, first of all, the fact that we're reusing the exact same set of consensus participants. With the merge, we were removing the proof of work miners and we were adding the stakers. And because of this difference in consensus participants, there's a lot of difficulties. Like one of them was that they didn't agree on the notion of a slot duration. Right? With proof of work, you have this Poisson distribution and like variable block times, and whereas with proof of stake, you have these very clean slots. And we were also worried about the proof of work miners trying to disrupt the fork. So actually, a lot of the complication was just doing this one migration from one system to another and think of all of the possible edge cases and attack vectors. But here, because it's reusing the same set of consensus participants on both sides of the fork, and it's also reusing the same clock, basically, which is synchronized around these slot boundaries. The fork, in my opinion, is much easier to pull off. And then the other thing that I'll mention is that for the merge, there was a desire to do it as quickly as possible because we were printing many thousands of ETH every single day, and there was an urgency to get rid of the proof of work. I think here with the Beam chain, we can really spend a lot of time on due diligence and not rush it at all. And another thing that I'll say is that today we have all of the infrastructure to do quality assurance. We have a dedicated security team that has a lot of experience. We have many different clients, right? So there's the 6 existing consensus clients plus 8 more. So there's a total of 14 different Beam teams. So we're going to have excellent client diversity from day one. And then there's all of the infrastructure around Panda Ops that is now capable of spinning up these shadow forks and devnets and testnets. Not to mention like all of the fuzzing and all of the formal verification that we're doing now and all of the audits. I think we're at a much more mature stage now where we can do these more ambitious forks like the Beam fork. But yeah, I don't think we can mess it up. So we would have to really put in a lot of due diligence to make sure that we don't mess it up.
I was going to say, bold statement. We can't mess it up.
I love it. You touched on, I think I heard the word quantum earlier, quantum computing question by Harog. What do you think is a realistic timeline for a quantum computer being able to crack elliptic curve cryptography with the field sizes we use in Ethereum? And how many years ahead could we know of this happening, and how many years do we need for the transition to a quantum secure Ethereum L1? And I believe I heard on the podcast you mentioned that the Beam chain may have some quantum like component within it that can help defeat quantum cracking.
Right. So elliptic curve cryptography is actually used in different places, and there's different fields involved. But it doesn't really matter because, broadly speaking, once you can build these scalable, fault-tolerant quantum computers, then it's just a matter of adding a few more bits, or qubits, I should say, here and there, and then you can just tackle these larger fields without too much problem. In terms of a specific timeline, even the experts don't agree, but 10 years seems reasonable. There was like a massive breakthrough in 2024 with error correction. So now we know that error correction, is totally possible, and this allows us to go from what we call physical qubits, which are these noisy qubits, to logical qubits, which are kind of the error-corrected, cleaned-up version that we can actually use as a building block to build these scalable quantum computers that can crack. And so now, effectively, you can think of us being at a point where we have one logical qubit, and behind it, there's hundreds of physical qubits. And in order to break the cryptography, I forget exactly, but it's something on the order of like 100,000 qubits. So we still have a ways ahead. But I have this friend in Cambridge who is the CEO, the founder and CEO of a very large quantum computing company, and his timelines are on the shorter side of things, and he thinks that we're going to get all of these scalable quantum computers, maybe even faster than 10 years.
Wow.
Let's say that there is a computer that could crack it. Are they going for Bitcoin first, or are there going to be other warning signs in the world that they have managed to break RSA encryption? Would the NSA be the first user of this, and the courts or someone would compel Google to use their quantum computer for their ends? Or just because this computer would exist doesn't mean it's in the hands of someone that would choose to go and take all of Satoshi's funds, right?
Yeah, that's a good
No,
point.
that's a great point. That's exactly right. There's this ETH research post from many years ago titled Quantum Canaries. And what it's trying to do basically is to be in a position where you can have smart contracts that detect the presence of these quantum computers and automatically upgrade their cryptography to a quantum post-quantum fallback. And the reason why you want to have this fallback as opposed to having it by default is because post-quantum cryptography tends to be, roughly speaking, 10 times more expensive. So you're going to spend 10 times more gas to work with that. And so you can have the benefit of the gas optimization and efficiency in the short term. And then as soon as there's a trace of a quantum computer, then you can fall back to something stronger.
Justin, I think I found this article and you wrote this. Are you ready? February 2nd of 2018. Did that time fly or what? Gee whiz, it's almost... That's crazy. It's so far back. Yeah, this is an article. Does Stage have chat? How do we do this? Huh? Okay. Well, here's chat right here. I'm going to put this link in the chat if people want to read what Justin was writing about a few years ago and see. Yeah, somebody gave me the link. Thank you so much, Mavericks. Appreciate you. I want to go back to these questions real quick because there was a second part of this. Are the L2s easier to transition to quantum secure systems than the L1 or not, especially ZK snark-based ones?
So this is a tricky question because I guess there's two types of L2s. There's L2s which have a form of governance, whether that's a security council or a governance token, and those arguably can upgrade more easily because they don't need to go through the process of a hard fork. On the other hand, if you want to build a fully immutable L2, then in some sense it's much harder, if not impossible, to transition to something that's post-quantum secure, if not post-quantum secure from day one. And so this is actually part of the reasoning for this proposal that I made a couple of weeks ago for a new precompile called the execute precompile, which would allow rollups to launch as so-called native rollups. And what you can do as a native rollup is basically reuse whatever security the L1 provides. And so if and when the L1 becomes post-quantum secure, your rollup also becomes post-quantum secure because the proofs, instead of going at the application layer, they're actually verified directly at L1 by the validators. That's one of the advantages of being a native rollup, is that you don't have to worry about post-quantum security.
There was another question regarding rollups. Wait, I skipped the part I wanted to ask. Okay. All right. So ZK questions. When we get a snarkified main net, will this increase the resource demand for node runners? And Harog continues, as far as I understand, especially Stark-based proof validation will need a lot of RAM. Can we expect similar efficiency gains as expected for proof generation, or are the efficiency gains for proof validation somehow smaller?
So once we've snarkified mainnet, resource usage will go down dramatically. So not only will it not increase, but it will go down by orders of magnitude. The first reason is that once you've snarkified mainnet, then you don't need to maintain state anymore. So you can run as a stateless node. So you won't need this hard drive with a terabyte of storage or whatever it is. And secondly, you won't need powerful CPUs. You'll just need to download these tiny proofs that take about 1 millisecond to verify. And the proof size is fairly small, let's say one megabyte. And actually there's this meme where once we've snarkified mainnets, you'll be able to fully validate Ethereum on a smartwatch. So we're kind of going even more extreme than a Raspberry Pi.
Wow.
Now, one valid question is who's going to generate the proofs? Because surely you can't generate the proofs on smartwatch, and that's exactly right. The smartwatches, the consensus participants, they're only verifying proofs, and there's other actors that are generating the proofs. And there's two types of proofs. There's the EVM proofs that prove that the transactions are valid, and for that we're going to lean quite heavily on so-called execution proposers, which are sophisticated entities. Think of them as the current day block builders that would generate those proofs. And then there's the much easier proofs to generate, which are the consensus layer proofs. And for that, we would lean on an altruistic minority. So we would hope that at least one person in the world that's connected to the Ethereum network is willing to generate these cheap proofs, and the proving can be done on a laptop. And so hopefully, at least one person has the laptop and is willing to do the proving for free.
Yeah. So that I think that probably answered the follow-up question: is do you think ZK ASICs will dominate ZK proof generation soon, or will GPUs stay relevant? Okay. Very good.
So I'm happy to answer that question, actually. I've given a talk on Snark ASICs, and I'm very excited about Snark ASICs. It is a difficult problem, and there's about 3 or 4 companies looking to tackle that problem: Sysig, Axial, Fabric, Honos, and possibly a few others. And my hope is that we can get systems maybe to this year, halfway through this year, or maybe end of this year, which are 10 times better than GPUs in a few key metrics. The first one is power usage. So these GPUs consume a lot of power, and if we want them to be more decentralized and more friendly to home provers, then we need to consume less power. Secondly, I expect them to be significantly cheaper, right? NVIDIA charges a very high margin on top of the production costs, and I think that will go way down. And then finally, I'm hoping that the sizes, the actual physical sizes of these boxes will go down dramatically, maybe by a factor of 10x. And the dream is that you can buy these little boxes that might cost a few $1,000s, say $10,000. And you'll be able to prove the entirety of Ethereum on this one box, and it will be a very decentralized setup.
Fantastic. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm again regurgitating a previous talk that I listened to on was the ZK, the snarkification or the ZK proofs that take such a small amount of data and time. Is that is able to happen as fast as ping happens, correct? So it's very much like real time within a couple hundred milliseconds. Did I get that right? Round trip?
So it's the pre-confirmations that have the ping time UX for the users. And the way that works is with simple cryptographic signatures.
Okay.
So it's basically the sequencer making a promise and signing a message. I will do this, and if they don't do it, they get slashed. The proof latency for the snarks is what I call real-time proving, or next slot real-time proving, where you basically need to provide the proof by the next slot. So you have a full 12 seconds or whatever the slot duration is to generate the proof. And there's this website, eveproofs.org, that launched a few days ago. And there you'll be able to track the progression of proving latencies and proving costs. But the consensus from these Snark experts seems to be that we will have next slot real-time proving this year. And that's going to unlock all sorts of use cases, especially with the native rollups, but also for the Beam chain whenever that's ready.
Hani Abu has a question. How does support for enshrined native L2s look? Where would that fall into the timeline?
So recently there was a sequencing call number 17. You can find it on YouTube, where various different founders of L2s and rollups signaled interest in native rollups. So, for example, there's Jesse from Base, there's Nick from Namechain, there's Hayden from Unichain. There was Ben from Optimism, and really what these teams want is the ability to get rid of their security councils, get rid of bugs, get rid of the need to have governance to stay in sync with the EVM, and also, as I mentioned, the need to worry about post-quantum security, and the accelerated timeline makes use of re-execution. So it's possible that in 2026, we could have the precompile, which is not enforced by snarks, but enforced the stupid way, the naive way, using re-execution, where we basically ask the validators to naively re-execute these state transitions. And this is a pragmatic approach, in my opinion, which is very, very similar to proto-dank sharding. Right? Proto-dank sharding doesn't have any of the fancy magic. It's not doing any data availability sampling. It's just doing the most stupid thing possible, which is asking the validators to re-download the blobs. And the naive re-execution for the native rollups would be the exact same idea. And you might worry, okay, what about the additional resource utilization on my node? Well, the good news is that because it's stateless re-execution, there will be zero state overhead. Because it doesn't affect blobs or call data, there's going to be no overhead in terms of bandwidth. The only overhead is in terms of CPU time. But the EVM is this single-threaded machine, which is difficult to parallelize. And the execute precompile would be very easy to parallelize. So if you have a computer with more than one core, then more likely than not, you'll be using resources which are currently unused.
I want to make sure that we let people in the audience that want to ask questions, because I'm looking at my watch. I've got 12 minutes left with you, and we'll take 10 minutes. Go ahead, Logan.
One of the questions that came up from the text here seems to be on what is the eventual fate of the L2s that we have now? Are Optimism and Arbitrum, are they going to convert to based rollups? Are they going to continue to exist in their optimistic form? Is there any economic benefit to the sort of corner cutting that optimistic rollups employ just by virtue of being optimistic? Or do you think the eventual fate for everything is to converge on based and native rollups?
So in some sense, native rollups is a no-brainer, assuming that you are EVM equivalent and that you can even become a native rollup. And think of it as being a security upgrade that essentially comes for free. Now, and that's part of the reason why people are so excited about it, and that there's fairly little controversy. On the other hand, with base sequencing, it's been an uphill battle where, over 2024, I've spent a lot of time on base sequencing, and it takes a lot of effort to convince someone that they do want to opt into base sequencing. And the reason is that there is this weird economic trade-off going on. When you opt into a shared sequencer, you lose direct control over your MEV. But the thing that you gain is more connectivity, more composability, and therefore more traffic. And so the economic question becomes, am I gaining more from the congestion fees, the traffic, relative to what I'm losing with the MEV? Now, the good news is that MEV should be extracted by applications, meaning that as we know how to design DEXs and other applications that don't leak MEV, almost all of the revenue for rollups will stem from the congestion fees. And so if that's the case, then you want to try and maximize congestion. And the way that you would do that is by maximizing composability. And the way you do that is by opting into a shared sequencer like the base sequencer.
Excellent. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to raise their hand and come up on stage and ask Justin a question? We've got just about 4 minutes left or so, 5 minutes left. I can continue to go down the list of questions here. Or Justin, is there anything that you see the sheet of questions? Is there anything in particular that you want to announce to the world, or what's on your mind?
Let's see. I mean, I am very excited by all of the developments with the SNOC proving. It seems like we're reaching this inflection point, and I mentioned the eveproofs.org website. Just to give you one data point, we can prove mainnet EVM blocks in less than 10 cents. And I expect the number to be much closer to 1 cent in a few months. And we have multiple SNOC experts who are currently building towards a world with real-time proving with this 12-second slot time. And then another thing that I'm excited about is the fact that we have diversity at the zkVM layer, because one of the scary things about zkVMs is that it's easy to have bugs in them. And so the way that you hedge against bugs is with diversity. And this is where, the Mavericks, the social layer comes in, where you want to try and encourage this client diversity. Right now, the good news is that there's more zkVM vendors than there are consensus and execution clients. So if that stays the same and the social layer embraces that diversity, then I'm very, very optimistic about the SNOC layer.
Oh, I want to touch on the Mavericks for a second. And you see these PFPs all over Twitter, and I don't think many people understand the origin story of how we became to be. So this is an NFT that was awarded retroactively towards community contributors on then Ethfinance. And now we are on our Ethereum, bringing that energy over to the daily discussion there, but also beyond. So we're trying to make Reddit, the main Ethereum sub, absolutely relevant to the conversation. The EVMavericks, there's only 1,324 or so of those that were minted retroactively. These people have been around the block for a long time. Many of them are developers. They're also working with all the different teams out there in terms of DAOs and contributing in so many ways out there in the Ethereum landscape. I mentioned to you before the call, I know that we could do a token-gated private conversation on Discord with you sometime if you just want to have a focus group that's out of your normal bubble and give you a chance to breathe within this community, because they've been along holding hands with Ethereum for years now, and they've gone through all the emotional stuff that goes with it. I was going to ask you kind of a personal question real quick, Logri.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I have a closing question for him before he goes. So let's be sure to get that in, but you can go ahead and do your question.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Let's do the question first.
Okay. User veterinary says, your contributions to Ethereum are almost unmatched. Do you realize how much the Ethereum community respects, admires, and loves you, Justin? Have we, as a community, made this clear to you?
Yes, you've made it more than clear enough there. Thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful to be able to make such contributions. I find my work extremely meaningful, lots of fun, and every day I wake up and I think about the Ethereum mission, and I work extremely hard, but ultimately it's something that I truly enjoy. And thank you so much for all of the community appreciation.
Yeah. Definitely echo those sentiments. If you ever just need a bubble to come hang out in the daily general discussion or right here, we're not as we're just. I read stuff on crypto Twitter and it just makes my head hurt, And I'm sure as a leading researcher, you've had to bear the brunt of a lot of stuff, even indirectly, that's affected people around you as you guys work diligently on this mission. That really is a mission. In my eyes. I was going to ask you kind of on a personal level, what was a real galvanizing moment for you, not just in Ethereum, but just as a person that is interested in computer and science work? What was a real galvanizing moment in your youth that you feel like was a formative event in your life that got you to where you are today?
I mean, I really appreciate the notion of a crowd, a group building a public good. I used to be a Wikipedia editor and kind of article creator, and I really enjoyed that. I was kind of also pretty fascinated by Kickstarter when they came out. This notion that anyone could just propose a project and you'd have random people on the internet who are willing to support it. I thought it was really, really beautiful. And I also really appreciate these open marketplaces, things like eBay, like Uber, like Airbnb. Ultimately, we're just dealing with other individuals peer to peer. And this is what kind of got me attracted to Bitcoin. One of the first things that I worked on in Bitcoin was this peer-to-peer marketplace called Open Bazaar, which was trying to remove the middleman, if you will, the operator of the marketplace, and have truly peer-to-peer interactions. And when you look at Ethereum today, it really is this wonderful social experiment where you have tens of thousands of people all contributing in their own ways permissionlessly towards this shared goal. And what brings us together is shared economics, shared values, and shared memes. And it's kind of beautiful how very little ultimately is sufficient to get such blossoming emergent behavior.
Well, it is good to wake up and enjoy your work every day, and I know the Mavericks appreciate that in their own worlds. That we have so many accomplished people that just seem like they've found their groove in life, and that's a rare thing. And we're really glad that you found yours. See, we do things backwards on this podcast. We do the origin story at the end. And I feel like it's really cool what you've been working on. It was neat to hear kind of that backstory of like, now we get it. It's all about peer-to-peer decentralization, always has been. So, Justin Drake, thank you so much for stopping by today. We do the rest of the show if you want to listen in, but go ahead, Logri.
Oh, I was going to say, we've got one more goodbye question from the chat.
Good.
From Interweaver. Yeah, Interweaver asks, how are you feeling about Ethereum's development cycle? Will we be able to scale it similar to, for example, Linux or web technology has done? With thousands of core developers and stakeholders involved, are there bottlenecks that you're concerned about?
So one of the beautiful concepts that Vitalik put forward is this notion of programmable escape velocity, where in some sense we want to provide like the minimal building blocks at layer one, and then people can just have the full freedom to build whatever they want elsewhere, and it's not bottlenecked by the social layer and by hard forks. And I think what's missing to get to that point is a little bit of expressivity. And things like the native rollup execute precompile that is fundamentally unlocking something that is not possible today, but to a very large extent is just about scalability. And my projection is that over the next 10 years we're going to grow by many orders of magnitude, so much so that we should be able to process about 10 million transactions per second, which sounds a little crazy, but the back of the envelope calculation is that if you take Ethereum L1 without any optimization, you'll get about 10 transactions per second. If you incorporate rollups as an optimization, where you do execution off-chain and you compress the data that goes on-chain, you get 100x over that. If you do sharding, you get another 100x. And if you're patient and you wait 10 years and you let Nielsen's law compound, so Nielsen's law is the equivalent of Moore's law for bandwidth, then you get another 100x. So 300x's, that's a million x. You start with 10 TPS, you end up with 10 million TPS. And we're only reaching the point where we're getting close to 1,000 TPS. And so what's left to happen over the next 10 years is another 10,000x, which is going to be really beautiful to see.
Fantastic. Okay. Anything else? I know you got to get going. You probably have another big talk to do. We'll let you go, Justin, and hope to meet you in person sometime. Hope to cook some barbecue for you sometime. I'll have to bring my smokers on an airplane over to your neck of the woods if they'll allow me to do that.
Yeah, I actually have a debate with a Bitcoiner in about 15 minutes.
You poor guy.
That I should hop off to. But one piece of alpha, because you mentioned Reddit. So we do these AMAs every 6 months with the Ethereum Foundation research team. The next AMA, which hasn't been announced yet, should happen on the 25th of February. I'm really excited to see what kind of energy we can get now that the two Reddits have merged.
Oh yeah, we're there, baby. We'll take care of that and curate that discussion just fine. And hey, we're looking for a guest for our 100th episode on February 21st. So if we could steal Mr. Vitalik for 5 minutes, that'd be sweet. If he could drop by, we'd love to have him sometime. But anyway, I'll let you go.
Subtle plug.
I'm not gonna be subtle about it. I've been asking him to come to my house for barbecue since 2016, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like me. I don't know. Okay, brother, we'll let you go.
He hasn't traveled to the US for many years. So
that's right.
Don't take it personally.
I don't take it personally. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for stopping by. We're gonna keep going with the rest of our show. Good luck with the Bitcoiner. I know you'll make easy work of that mess. And drop a link to me, and we'll share it and take a watch of that as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, man. Well, there you go, huh? That was fun. Look at this. This guy dropping by our call. What a special moment. Thanks so much again, Justin. Well, with that, it is time to move on to our weekly Doots. The rest of our call, let's get right into it. We'll hit our rich list starting at number 10, Set One Less at 105, Hani Abu at 106, Crypto Wild Currency at 109, 696 ETH at 111, Ethical Trade at 113, Tricky Troll 139, Harag at 148, Benito 2030 at 162, Low Greed the Bard at 168, and Super Fizz at 219. I'm going to make a special honorable mention of Wolf Parking. Wolf Parking had a daily Doot where he got a triple kill on a single daily. To my knowledge, only one other person has ever had a triple kill before, and I believe it was Super Fizz. It might have been Interweaver. I can't remember. But yeah, it's only been done one time. Wolf Parking, congrats to you on the triple kill. All right, we had Justin Drake today. Marcus Haas coming from Ethereum Phone on February 7th, February 14th. Adam Bloomberg, certified financial planner from Interaxis, February 21st to be determined. I'm still working on that. I'm still working on the 21st. Joe Lubin's been contacted twice. Vitalik's been reached out twice. We'll see what happens. March 14th, Andy Lower from Scenario Protocol. EVMavericks, I'll be doing some barbecue on Wednesday, the 26th at ETH Denver. Actually need to pull, there's I think I put it in the Mavericks channel somewhere. One of the guys that's in the Daily Doots private chat, if you want to put that in the chat, that would be sweet. So Wednesday, the 26th, and then I'm going to do another barbecue on the 28th at a Green Pill location. EVMavericks Daily Dudes podcast is going to be sponsoring much of the food. Other than that, I'll just take some tips. It should be good as always. A-Word's going to be coming along as sous chef. All right. And let's see. Morning roundup for today. Alexis Kev says Ethereum. ETH Zen chimes in at 3260. Kalukoris at 031 and uses Bink video. 3.6 million. Hey, we crossed the 6 mark there, lady and gentlemen. A weekly haiku courtesy of JS Tears. Our scaling prowess. The layer 2s allow us more blobs endow us. Awesome. And we got stats with Dr. ETH. These are always so good. He gives us all the percent changes, the average supply, current supply, total inflation. I love this. Negative 0.01 since the merge. Woo, right there on the mean line, aren't we? Total ETH ETF flows, 2634. I believe that's in millions. Total ETF flow over the last 3 days, down 73 million. And the ETF flow on the last recorded day, 67.8. Awesome. Thank you so much to Dr. ETH for putting those stats in there. And here we are. So we've got our shit post of the week. Let's see what this... Oh, all hail the eternal crab is making the dudes call now. I love it. It's our ad Astra bringing back the eternal crab. There's the crab right there in between the whales. Very nice. Overexposed AI investors are scared. Trillions of USD in AI investments are in peril. A small blue whale is crushing their dreams of moon. Logic would dictate that a portfolio rebalance is required, and it would also dictate that a small percentage of those trillions would flow to crypto, and thus Ethereum, DeepSeek, and open source AI is immensely bullish for crypto, and thus Ethereum, is immensely bullish for crypto as AI can replace everything in tech but crypto. But every time there is good news for Ethereum, this is when the mighty crab reveals his immense power. The AI investment bubble popping will have no effect on the price, thus have the prophecies foretold. And our shit post of the week comes to us by way of Farouz Zerker. Oh, wow. Farouz Zerker is a new name to my eyeballs. Looks like they need to be duded. Yeah, need to be duded. We shall fight on the subreddits. We shall fight on the deep, dark corners of X. We shall fight in the discords and on the forums. We shall battle in the tweets and the threads. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this network or much of it were fudded till end of ray, then our ETH community across the globe, empowered by decentralization and defended by the strength of the protocol, would carry on the struggle until, in time, the new world of true decentralization, with all its power and clarity, steps forward to restore and liberate the old. Very good, Farouz Zerker, with your ship post of the week, because we always like to save the best for first. On to the Doots. Frank the Tank reminds us to make sure our seed phrases are secure and our hardware wallets are still working. Yesterday, I wanted to send some stable coins from my cold wallet, a Ledger, shocker, to finally try and earn some yield on them. I connected my Ledger to MetaMask and attempted to make a transaction. Somehow, the transaction failed without a proper error message. Then I tried Rabby, but the same issue occurred. Next, I tried Ledger Live, but nothing happened there either. Googling the issue didn't bring me closer to a solution. The only option left was to reset the ledger using the seed phrase. This also didn't work. It looks like my good old ledger, without the back door, had died on me. Luckily, I had a second unused ledger, which did work after entering the seed phrase. If this had happened to me in a bull market when I decided it was time to sell and I didn't have a backup ledger, as many people don't, I wouldn't have been able to sell. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's important to maintain your hardware wallets every now and then to ensure they still function. That way, when, not if, the time comes that ETH hits 10K and you want to sell, you'll actually be able to do so. I'm in that same club. I remember I had a ledger and I went to use it and it wanted to do an update and it updated the firmware and it bricked it. And I had to contact Ledger to get another one. I'm like, how handy was that? You know, great.
Dealing with any of the key stuff is just gut wrenching, right? It's
God, yes.
It's not the best UX of crypto for sure.
Yeah.
It's up there with I'm just gonna blindly send some ERC20s at a deposit address in exchange, right? Like, why is it this bad? Why couldn't we do better? Fortunately, there are things like Argent Web Wallet that are trying to make that more disaster friendly, right? Where you can have things like an encrypted private key shard that you send out to someone, right? And then you enter like a 2FA and they send it to you and you decrypt it with a password or something, right? There's a variety of approaches that are trying to make it so that if your device is lost, damaged, or you lose the private key, like the raw one, you can still recover somehow. And that, we've seen social recovery wallets. We've seen things like what Argent Web Wallet is doing. And then we see things like where you can take your Grid Plus, the card that you insert and just make duplicates of that, right? So you can make 10 or 20 backups of it for relatively cheap and scatter them, one's inside the painting of your grandfather on the mantle and another one's in a safe down in a bank down the road. And it's unlikely for both of those to be damaged at once. You can mail one across the globe in case a meteor strike hits or you somehow survive it. So you definitely need to validate that. If you have like your safety deposit box, go there every couple of years, please, and make sure that you can still get the key.
Yeah, it's so true. You got to, any proper business or company or entity does proper security checks of everything. That's why fire marshals go check fire extinguishers and change them out every once in a while. It's just because it's a hardware wallet doesn't mean it's not able to be compromised. And then obviously or not compromised, but fail. And then like to your point about, going to the bank, there's people working in a bank, you just got to check that box every now and then. It's not costing you anything to do, but a little bit of time. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Let me move on down the list here. Let's see. User VVPan, I guess that's how you say your name, ruminates on both demoralization and hope. Oh boy, here we go. VVPan is a duder 24, been around for a while. I'm looking for a new job in tech, and I'm both demoralized and in a way more inspired and hopeful for crypto than ever. Yeah, that sentence hits hard. I learned some things from working at a startup, and some things dawned on me very, very recently because of denial. I'm going to get real negative for a second. Number one, VCs are not friends of crypto. Behind the talk of ideology and decentralization is a good old-fashioned greed. They talk big talk, but behind the scenes it's, quote, create a token, go on Twitter, unquote. Does not matter if it kills the project roadmap. Would not be surprised if crypto has struggled to find product market fit largely because of VCs. They chase hype and quick returns, and they put shackles on you to make you dance. This seems to apply to the whole VC class, quote, disrupting. Disrupting means replacing a fairly decentralized industry, however flawed, with a single monopoly of which they will be a shareholder. That's the VC wet dream. I'm gonna pause on that note just as a personal opinion. Listen to the podcast we did with Kate Lawrence from Blockcelerate, and she says many of the same things, and she's a VC. She said many of the same things that you did, VVPan. And that's from the mouth of a VC. And, you know, in her pitch as to why they are different. And you look at some of the companies that are invested in, they are a bit different too. Okay, number 2, it is cliche to say, quote, corporations are greedy, unquote. But that is a structural problem dawned on me only now that I'm about to turn 40. Shitification and shareholder enrichment at any cost is built into the corporate structure. In the digital world, that took on a whole new form. 2 or 3 companies own our digital lives, our identity, our data, and control what we watch, read, and buy through algorithms they themselves cannot control, while enriching a Zuck, an Elon, and a Jeff. I love the book Techno-Feudalism on the topic. As I heard somebody say, quote, corporation was invented centuries ago and no new legal structures have appeared since then, unquote. Woo. Number 3, war and imperialism are back in full swing. Greenland, question mark? You must be kidding me. Now, all of that has come to have one name to me, centralization. Centralization of power, centralization of wealth. Monopoly is a centralizing force, so is imperialism. So is VC money. What crypto, on the other hand, has done is bring back the idea that individuals matter, that we are disempowered by centralization, and we have had enough. DAOs are hard to run, but the exhilaration of mattering for a second felt by everybody involved in one is palpable, at least while the going is good. This is not a new thing. Farm development and electrification of the USA, for example, was largely done by cooperatives. The economies of whole regions of Spain are driven by co-ops. The ideas of radical decentralization are not new, but crypto ethos has given them new momentum among the wider public. So why am I demoralized? It feels like the world is in a dead end, and it is harder than ever to sell oneself to a Zuck wannabe. It all seems to miss the point. It is centralization and enrichment at the cost of me and you and everybody we know. Why am I hopeful? The space of imagining new ways to raise funds and organize seems to be thriving. Crypto is the only space in my life where the word governance and its importance seems to be universally understood. Among the decentralization theater, there are genuine actors every day pulling in the right direction. So my praise goes out to everybody who has been working on decentralized networks, the Vitaliks, the people at Ethereum Foundation, the people who are coming up with new ways of funding the commons, the Owakis, the Bread Change, the Mastodons, and Blue Skies, both decentralized protocols, people doing research on governance and implementing it, anybody who ever was or wanted to be a part of a DAO or a co-op, anybody who believes and hopes that we do and will matter. And thanks to the mods for everything, including not blocking my raging rants. That is from VV Pan. What a great write-up. Good job. Man.
Long-time user.
Yeah, long-time user. User Ferriaria. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name correctly. Let's see. Covers the turnaround and regulatory hurdles for U.S. banks custodying crypto. Another major roadblock to Wall Street's adoption of cryptocurrencies has been an accounting rule issued by the SEC in 2022, requiring banks to classify cryptocurrencies as liabilities on their balance sheet. The rule has subjected those assets to strict capital requirements, significantly raising the financial and regulatory risks of offering crypto custody services. Efforts to overturn the rule, known as SAB 121, gained bipartisan support in Congress last year. But then President Joe Biden vetoed the proposed legislation, leaving the rule intact and further discouraging banks from adopting digital assets. Banks, oh wait, I got a Biden. Banks have been largely forbidding from expanding their crypto offerings beyond derivatives trading and offering ETFs to wealth management clients. Quote, At the moment, from a regulatory perspective, we can't own, unquote, Bitcoin. Goldman, so the quotes were in the wrong order. At the moment, from a regulatory perspective, we can't own Bitcoin. Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon told CNBC in an interview in Davos this week. He said the bank would revisit the issue if the rules changed. Late Thursday, the SEC rescinded SAB 121, potentially opening the door for banks to custody crypto assets without such burdensome capital requirements. Bye-bye, SAB 121. It's been fun, wrote SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce.
It's not been fun.
It's not been fun. This was written by Hester Pierce, who on Tuesday was tapped to lead a new crypto task force in a post on X Thursday night following the decision. And there's a link to the CNBC article. And Ferraria closes, it will be interesting to learn one day what the thinking was behind this decision from Biden. What say you, Logri Zabard?
I think that Jerome Powell just said that banks could custody crypto this week too, right?
Yeah.
So the accounting rule is gone. We have progress from the SEC. We have progress from the Federal Reserve. We have progress from the Treasury Secretary. So yeah, looks like on all fronts there's a change in regulatory winds that's manifesting, and the big banks are going to be willing and able to capitalize, offer new products to their customers, and make money doing so. And maybe we'll see some DeFi mullet style products in a couple of years, where people can deposit some crypto in a bank, and the bank will go out to liquidity farming for you and give you take half your interest for a DeFi mullet experience, right?
That would be pretty epic, huh? Very cool. Oh, I see a wild Justin LaRue, CEO of Grid Plus, has shown up in the chat. Brother, raise your hand if you want to chime in on anything. And that goes for anybody else, too. This is your show. If you want to get on stage, got something to chime in about, let's hear you. Moving on down the list. Ether Raider is on fire with his posts on Twitter. Yeah, Ether Raider's been like cleaning house on X. If you guys haven't
He's really been on the warpath. I love it.
God, yeah. I mean, when I see him getting 1,000 likes,
a lot of time.
He's bringing the heat, bringing that Maverick heat out there. It's nice. He's on fire with his posts on Twitter and makes an interesting analogy. Ether Raider is a duder number 60 OG. He's got all this stuff, all these meme coin casino stuff. We're taking the narrative back. The Twitter, he's got it right here. BTC created immutability, decentralization, digital gold. ETH created smart contracts, decentralized stablecoins, ICOs, DEXs, DAOs, so liquidity pools, DeFi, NFTs, real-world asset tokenization, roll-ups, AI agents. Solana created a meme coin casino. God dang hammer drop. Good shit. I love it. Well done. User Harog, freaking awesome questions today. Harog for Justin. I appreciate those questions for Justin Trake. Harog explains why the ZK rollup user experience varies between other ZK rollups and optimistic rollups. Harog writes, here is my understanding of it. Not sure if it is 100% correct, especially about the zero-knowledge cryptography part, but that is how I understand it at the moment. ZK rollups are a huge design space, and depending on the choices, the costs will differ. First of all, if one uses Starks instead of Snarks, the proofs are larger, so they cost more to verify, but they are faster to generate. As far as I understand, most or all non-privacy ZK rollups are looking into Starks nowadays, if they are not using them already. Scroll still uses Snarks, as far as I know. There is also the subspectrum of commitment schemes, which change the size and growth of the proofs. Another axis is how compatible the ZK rollups are to the EVM. Starknet is totally incompatible. They use their own programming language, their own wallets, their own block explorers, their own everything. This makes their network a bit of a pain to use, but their proofing is more efficient and therefore cheaper. Scroll is the other extreme. It is fully EVM compatible. Whatever smart contract runs on Ethereum runs exactly the same on Scroll. This increases the proofing cost for them. Same with Linnea. ZK Sync is somewhere in between, as it is mostly compatible. But as far as I remember, the hash function is a different one, which, for example, does not allow us deploy a Gnosis safe on ZK Sync under the same address as on all fully EVM compatible rollups. There is also the part about how efficiently transaction data or state diffs are stored on blobs or in blobs. So depending how advanced they are, rollups could save some money in that part as well. There is also the obvious part if a network wants to subsidize transactions by making them cheaper to increase the usage. This is obviously totally intransparent. What I expect is the largest influence, though, is how often proofs are published to Ethereum mainnet. According to L2Beat on Finality page, it takes 12 hours on Starknet for a transaction to get included on Ethereum mainnet. For ZK Sync, it takes 4 hours, and for Scroll, it takes 15 minutes. Publishing more proofs and batches makes a single transaction much more expensive because the proofing cost is shared among fewer transactions, but makes the time to finality much faster. So, I guess Scroll is optimizing for finality, and whereas the other ones optimize for cheap transactions. And user Wolf Parking shares Vitalik's blog post about methods to solidify ETH, the asset. I'm glad Wolf Parking made the Weekly Doots. Like I said, he had a triple kill in a single daily a couple days ago. Vitalik posted some incredible insight on how ETH as an asset and store of value could increase in value by following the L2 upgrade path. Vitalik says, we should pursue a multi-pronged strategy to cover all major possible sources of the value of ETH as a triple point asset. Some key planks of that strategy could be the following. Agree broadly to cement ETH as the primary asset of the greater L1 plus L2 Ethereum economy, support applications using ETH as a primary collateral, etc. Next bullet, encourage L2s supporting ETH with some percentage of the fees. This could be done through burning a portion of fees, permanently staking them, and donating the proceeds to Ethereum ecosystem public goods or a number of other formulas. God, this guy's a genius. Somebody ought to get him on the podcast. Support-based rollups in part as a path for L1 to capture value through MEV, but do not attempt to force all rollups to be based, because it does not work for all applications, and do not assume that this alone will solve the problem. And the final bullet, raise the blob count. Consider a minimum blob price and keep blobs in mind as another possible revenue generator. As an example, possible future, if you take the average blob fee of the last 30 days and suppose it stays the same due to induced demand, while blob count increases to 128, then Ethereum would burn 713,000 ETH per year. However, such a favorable demand curve is not guaranteed. So also do not assume that this alone will solve the problem. And the whole blog post is a fantastic and worth a read. Thank you, Wolf Parking, for bringing some V. User Edmund Edgar explains why we need a credibly neutral financial layer. Edmund Edgar is a Deuter number 12. Whew, here we go. Okay, so I hate to do U.S. politics.
Boom, boom, boom. We have pizzas, we have 300 hamburgers.
But we kind of have to, because one way or another, U.S. politics is going to do us, and something important just happened. The U.S. has for a long time been using civilian flights to deport people to Colombia. The new administration decided they were also going to do military flights, but they apparently neglected to clear this with the country where they were supposed to land, which denied them permission. In response, the president is talking about tariffs, which is getting a lot of media attention. But the important part is this, quote, IEEPA Treasury, banking and financial sanctions to be fully imposed, unquote. All right, Locking whole countries out of the U.S.-centered financial system is something previous administrations have done, but you generally know if you're the kind of country it could happen to. If you're going to invade the democracy next door, you should probably try to avoid relying on the U.S.-based financial system. But if you're a random Central American country or better, a U.S. ally like Denmark, you can be confident that your ability to transact is safe. This just changed overnight. Your country can be blocked out or locked out literally at a whim. The world is going to need new, credibly neutral financial infrastructure, and it is going to need it fast. They could try to use Chinese banking systems instead, but that just subjects them to the whim of another unpredictable old man. This is the moment we've been building for. Now, I know some people here have been jealous of Solana's recent price action and wishing Ethereum was better connected with the current administration's inner circle. But when you're in a position to provide credibly neutral financial infrastructure for the whole world, it's probably better not to have one of your main investors serving as the, quote, crypto czar of the man whose actions are making everyone look for an alternative. Yeah. Things are getting wild.
I mean, it's wild to me that, for example, Russia hasn't used the chain more to bypass SWIFT and all the sanctions and everything that we've done, with the Ukraine war against them. They're large enough, you'd think someone would have figured out that they can bypass the people that are censoring them, right?
Yeah. Did you see Czechoslovakia is opening up Bitcoin reserves too? I mean, the
dominoes will fall, right? Once the U.S. actually implements a strategic digital asset stockpile, not a Bitcoin reserve, mind you. I think it's gonna compel every other bank to have an answer for why they aren't, right? You either are going to say, well, we'll do that as well because everyone follows in the U.S. footsteps, or you're going to have to answer specifically to your constituents and people asking that question why you aren't doing that, right? Because, and specifically, why wouldn't you front run the U.S.? The U.S. is going to dump in a bunch of money. Why wouldn't you want to let them buy your bags and inflate the value of it, right? So that is a very positive and powerful narrative. Their size is size, but specifically on this post, it's not even about like, oh, we need to own ETH. They could own stable coins for all it matters, right? Just they could go and acquire some Curve USD and park it there, or Pi USD or whatever. Any ones that doesn't have a blacklist function, right? And get around all of the sanction restrictions on SWIFT. Get away from the U.S. I mean, if you're an oligarch in Russia and you've had your assets seized and given to Ukraine for reparations, right? You'd think you'd be like, where can I park my wealth instead? Because they took my yacht. I can't put it in that. Gold bars in what vault, right? Put them in London. They'll just take them from you. US, it's what we have technologically here is a very compelling option. And I'm surprised that we just haven't seen more of the wealthy elites and countries that the U.S. financial system has been censoring adopt blockchain to bypass that censorship. It should be that every time censorship is applied, it's the blade of it is dulled with its every use.
Yeah. What is it? A little bit gradually over time, and then all at once.
Yeah, first trickle then a flood. But
yeah. What is yeah. So there's two sides to the coin, and Trump getting elected was good for crypto price goes up, or was it Trump getting elected bad for all these other reasons, parking money here? There's like two kinds of investors on that.
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? You can look at both sides of that. Very good. Very good. Moving on, Grow the Pie _ETH, relative newcomer to the subreddit, but building an amazing product out there. Already a Deuter 12. That account's pretty young, and getting to Deuter number 12 land is awesome. All right, announces their new data availability overview page. We've just launched our new data availability overview page on growthepie.xyz. I'll open it up in the tab here. Oh, it's so pretty. Look at these guys. They're amazing. This page allows you to compare the biggest DA customers, data availability consumers, and compare between DA providers, including Ethereum blobs. So quick overview. Ethereum blobs. Less than a year since they were first introduced, blobs are consistently reaching their targeted capacity. This is going to be upgraded in the next hard fork. What Ethereum currently lacks in data availability capacity, it more than makes up for with the fees paid, proving that there are layer 2s willing to pay a premium for Ethereum blobs, which cost over $65 per megabyte yesterday. Next bullet, Celestia. Meanwhile, Celestia has seen a significant spike in data posted largely coming from Eclipse, proving that they have the capacity to meet demand, with cost per megabyte being on average around 17 cents for the year. Celestia not only provides reduced costs, but they are also more consistent in their pricing. And the final bullet point, further comments. Trade-offs exist between DA providers, and different use cases may require different solutions. What's important is that this experimentation is happening on Ethereum, made possible by layer 2s. Feedback would be welcome. Also, I am getting used to our Ethereum again. I don't know whether making a post would have been better. I think it's fine. Just put it in a daily, and I think it's fine to put it as a top-level post. Data availability is not a market thing necessarily, but I'm only one mod. And to be quite honest, all of the Ethfinance mods are lower than all of the our Ethereum mods. So on very, very rare occasion, we've been overruled on some of this stuff. So don't be surprised if it gets removed just because there's a $sign in here. But that's not to say that it would. So there you go. This is really cool, this website. There's all of your different Arbitrum, Optimism Base, Scroll, so on. You just hover over and it highlights everything. Tyco's in there. Very cool. Nice. I like pretty colors and charts. That's neat. Aiden Cairo. Man, Aiden Cairo's been getting on this the weekly because he's been doing these crazy amount of daily DevCon reflection pieces.
The summaries and whatnot are all AI generated, so it's
still
to him. He's just picking another video. Yeah, he's helping to organize people on a single topic, so it's more digestible than 100 talks all in a week, right?
It's a good
conferences
use.
Are kind of conferences can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. It's a good use of AI. I like it. The history and philosophy of cypherpunk, Daily DevCon number 56. This was January 27, 2025, day 56. The summary. The talk at the Ethereum Developer Conference discussed the importance of returning to the roots of cypherpunk ideals in blockchain technology. The speakers emphasized the ethical and moral aspects of cypherpunk and its goal of creating a better society in the present rather than in a future afterlife. I'm not sure how I would do that. They delved into the history of cypherpunk, touching on topics such as cryptography, public key encryption, anonymous communication networks, interesting, and the need for privacy and freedom in technology. They also highlighted the underfunding of cypherpunk projects and the ongoing battle against centralization of power in society. The talk ended with a call to support decentralized technologies that prioritize privacy, empowerment, and individual sovereignty. And then finally for this week, Tricky Troll is looking for some product feedback. Oh, here we go. Hey, everyone. I am very excited to share that I've picked up another part-time role in the Ethereum space. Good on you, man. Nice. This time I'm working with Karma.xyz, who are building tools for managing on-chain reputation to facilitate effective project funding and improve DAO coordination. If you've done any work with grants before, you may have heard of Karma Gap through our protocol for grant accountability, where their platform acts as a hub for all grants activity and building up profiles for grantees. Anyway, I'm reaching out to see if anyone here is interested in providing feedback on our new Funding Evaluator Network. The Funding Evaluator Network will be a platform that helps communities evaluate potential projects to fund through a range of credible evaluators, human and AI, reputation, and endorsements. If this sounds interesting to you and you're happy to see what we're building and provide us some feedback, just let me know. Also, if you are interested, just if you could, in a couple of words, explain your background, that would also be helpful. Literally, something like DeFi builder or DAO delegate or DeSci enthusiast. The more diverse the feedback we can get, the better. Any help at all is appreciated. Funding in Web3 is a very tough nut to crack, but hopefully some of you are willing to help us on this mission. And that rounds out this week's Doots. Thank you so much to all the EVMavericks. You don't have to leave, all right? We still continue the party on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of Ethfinance Ethereum Daily General Discussion, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.